Like the top three things that as the HR, you wish that people within their first couple of years of working at the federal government knew, or maybe three things that they wish they asked.
See a lot of new employees that never made it past the first year because they didn't understand.
A lot of federal employees don't know the difference between TSP and their annuity. They think it's one and the same. But I want to get the HR perspective. I don't think there's enough of it out there, right?
Setting your benefit packages up properly, understanding how much life insurance you should have, how much you should invest in your TSP, and making sure you're not missing out on some of those.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to another MyFedUniversity podcast. My name is Ryan Polimeni. I'm your host. And today I've got a really special guest speaker who's going to be doing a lot of contribution to this podcast and show moving forward. A good friend of mine who has been a friend of mine now for close to a decade. He and I have worked together in multiple different capacities. I'm going to let him tell you a little about his background, but I met Brian really in about 2016, 2017, and we kind of met on accident. I was doing a workshop in Roanoke, Virginia. For those of you who don't know, a little mountain town in Virginia. And, I was introduced to Brian, who was the HR specialist at the time there, through a mutual employee. And I remember vividly, she said, Ryan, why are you not doing these workshops, at the VA hospital? And I said, well, because you haven't invited me. And she goes, that's all I have to do. And so she walked me down to Brian's office, and man, it's been almost a decade of working together. And it's been a pleasure of mine because I've learned so much from you. And I'm gonna let you introduce yourself, and then I'm gonna brag about you for a few minutes, if that's okay. So, Brian, if you don't mind, everybody, Brian Zeman, if you don't mind, kind of just give us your background. And I know you're gonna you got a great topic of conversation today for federal employees, and really how to help them, because that's what this podcast is about. In this show, it's really about how to help these federal employees early in their career, mid-career, late, doesn't matter where they are. The information pertains to everybody. So, Brian, if you don't mind, kind of just tell us about yourself, a little about your background, and then we'll dive into some questions.
Definitely. Thank you, Ryan. So great to be on today and to be part of this team. Like you said, it was super exciting to meet you, running how it happened. But I think it was destined, and then we had some good opportunities to train employees. But Brian Zeman. I just recently retired from the federal government. I took advantage of the early retirement, and so ended up having a little over 30 years with the federal government. All of my time was the Department of Veterans Affairs, and came in as an HR specialist at a young age after I had separated from active duty military, and worked my way from an HR specialist all up to the chief of HR. And that's as you know, Ryan, when we met. But it was a great honor to work in HR, work for the Department of Veterans Affairs. I was always passionate, and that's why it was a good combination when MyFedUniversity came in. A good combination to teach employees things that maybe even HR, didn't have the full capacity to teach all the time or educate on. But it just made a good combination for us to help educate the employees on the many aspects of how to strategize early in your career for your retirement and your TSP and all the other benefits. So.
Sure. Tell us about your military background. You got a military background as well. What's that been like for you?
Yeah, very fortunate. I did 27 years in the United States Air Force. 7 of those were active duty, and then the remaining years was with the reserves. So that was a concurrent. As I was with the federal government, I was also doing my military career concurrently. But yep, great honor to have served this country and be part of the United States Air Force.
Well, thanks for serving, man. We appreciate it. And again, here's the thing for those of you guys listening, and we're gonna get into our topic here in a second. But for those of you listening, one of the things that I've always respected about Brian, and when we decided we're going to launch this show, he was one of the first people that I called, because I still tell everybody to this day, because we still do so much work with the VA hospitals and NASA and all these agencies around the country, is I meet a lot of people in your position in HRs, and I have some very, very good HR people. I mean, literally, you are one of the people that I have met in over 15 years of work with federal employees that cares more about the employee than anybody I've ever seen. Honestly, man, you got such a big heart, and it's something that was really attractive of trying to figure out how to work together and help your team at the VA hospital. And when I just sat with you for the first time, it was incredible how much you care about your people, and that was so apparent. I appreciate that about you, man. So I appreciate you bringing me in and letting us do this. And so what we're going to talk about today, Brian, is, you know, we're going to get the HR's perspective because, I see so many of these shows and a lot of it, yes, we're going to talk about benefits and financial planning, all these things, but I want to get the HR perspective. I don't think there's enough of it out there. Right. And so one of the topics that we get asked all the time, and even statements that a lot of people make too, right, is I wish I'd known this sooner. But when you had the ability to help a lot of people, hundreds of people, thousands of people start their career in the federal government. And you watch them through their few years journey, right? Brian, tell us, if you could narrow it down to maybe like the top three things, and I know it's probably a million of them, but we'll keep it simple. Tell us maybe like the top three things that as the HR, you wish that people within their first couple of years of working at the federal government knew, or maybe three things that they wish they asked differently when they started to kind of guide them along. So what are some of those things, Max? There's probably a lot of people listening would love to know how to do better when they begin their career, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Great question, Ryan. And thanks for teeing that up. I think, if I can narrow it down to the top three, I think when we used to do new employee orientation, for any new government employee coming on board, it's really a fire hose of information. Not only from just the whatever job you're doing for the government, but just the HR, all the new information. And so I know for new employee orientation, there was so many important things that were talked about, but focusing from an HR side, uh, I always wanted my employees to understand first and foremost probationary period. We ask, what does that have to do with benefits or retirement? But as an HR officer, I see a lot of new employees that never made it past the first year because they didn't understand, the probationary period, what that was. I mean, really, the probationary period is a time that your performance and your conduct is being looked at very heavily to see if you're a good fit for the government. So I would encourage people to fully understand your probationary period. Uh, the second thing I would always talk to my employees about, especially in new employee orientation, is the benefit package, and we would always try to have follow on meetings with that because again, it's so much information being given in a short amount of time when you first come on board. But again, setting your benefit packages up properly, understanding how much life insurance you should have, how much you should invest in your TSP, and making sure you're not missing out on some of those opportunities that the government provides us, such as matching contributions and things of that nature. Uh, and I guess the third thing we would always stress is, when you look at a long term government career and how they calculate maybe your annuity, a lot of that can be dependent upon you. Whatever grade you're at obviously can affect your retirement and how many years of service. So, you want to look at how to progress yourself from an early standpoint. And so we would always, encourage employees to understand how to look at opportunities for advancement. How do you get the promotions to get the higher grades? Understanding those rules so you can move forward in your career.
When you were going through new employee orientation, and we're using that because it's so early, right, when in somebody's career. But the reality is even 2, 3 years into it, I still think federal employees are trying to grasp all the moving parts, right? I've had the opportunity to work with thousands and thousands of federal employees on the financial, tax planning, estate planning side of things. But you see it from a different light, right? You got to see those pieces. What what were some of the challenges as you go through these three things, like the benefit package, for example? What do you think were some of the biggest challenges that these new, and I say new, well, so it's within the first 3, 5 years, right? What were some of the challenges that these employees faced when it maybe came to understanding the benefits that were? Was it just too much? Was it overwhelming? Was it just not explained well? Was it the education? What did you see kind of that made that an issue?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge is again, sometimes we understand with the government, there's a lot of confusion on processes, and just trying to navigate through that to be able to um, articulate what the process is. A lot of employees, obviously, it's not a concern maybe at an early in the first 5 years. They're looking at being the best in their job, which is great. They're not looking at some of those other things about, where am I going to be 25 years from now when retirement comes? And as we know, it comes quicker than you think. So I think, when you look at some of the challenges, it's just the workload of maybe the employee, the ever changing government system. Luckily, retirement has been pretty steady on those rules. But when it comes to some of the other benefits, there's, as with any government program, there's changes that you've got to stay ahead of to understand the changes.
Yeah, there's a lot. It's a lot of moving parts, and I'll tell you, working with a lot of federal employees, the level of confusion that I come across every day is incredible because it's like, you're starting a new job, right? You're starting to get your career. A lot of people, maybe it's a second career for people, maybe it's their first, right? And they're starting this new career and they're trying to get that in order, right? Let's be real, right? That first couple of years, or you're still learning your career, you're trying to improve in it, and then make it through the probationary period, right? It's important.
And
Then all these other things, and I hear this all the time, you probably did too, is I will get to those when I get settled.
yep.
And we know that settlement happens, but then the other part we never get back to. Was Do you think that played a really big role in the benefit piece for a lot of these guys? It's just like, hey, I will get to it someday, and that just day doesn't really come usually.
I did. Yeah. Again, I think it's people focus on their jobs and sometimes the HR aspect or what we call the HR aspect, retirement and benefits sometimes get forgotten about. Um, One of the things too is, it was one of those areas when you, especially in a large agency, it's hard to, employees who want the information, to have training seminars and things of that nature. So there was always limitations upon what we could do. I know I would encourage employees always to take advantage of anything that's being offered. I know at my facility that I was at, we offered resume writing classes. We offered interviewing classes. Again, just some of those tools that we could provide employees on how to improve themselves to advance the next job. And then when MyFedUniversity came in, I mean that was truly a big benefit to complement the training that we were trying to do or already doing, but really to complement that on the really the retirement, TSP, how that ties in with Social Security. That was so beneficial to the employees.
No, absolutely. And, for those of you that have not had the opportunity yet to go to the MyFed University website or be part of the MyFed University world, you can go to the Facebook pages, like, subscribe, follow the brand. Because I got to tell you, MyFed University is one of the largest federal education companies on the planet. They do an incredible job of teaching and training on all different topics. And I'm a network representative, just like Brian is. And we just roam the entire United States training and teaching federal employees. But because the need is so there, Brian. I mean, more than ever, I'm seeing it. And it's just it's great that we're able to help, and that's what this podcast and this show is all about. Is just getting the information back to the marketplace because it's needed. Um, the other thing you brought up, and we'll finish on this because I know we got a lot of other things that we're going to hit on, is how the annuity plays a role in people's retirement, especially so early on. And I got to tell you, I will tell you one of the big misconceptions, and maybe you can tell me if you've heard the same, is a lot of federal employees don't know the difference between TSP and their annuity. They think it's one and the same.
Yep.
What's been your experience when it comes to like helping people understand the importance of their annuity and how to maximize those things? And what's been your experience as an HR? What are some of the questions that you would get as an HR about the annuity piece?
Yeah. Uh, Great point. Uh, it kind of makes me laugh because if you talk to friends of mine or people that I had brought on board, I used to do a portion of the new employee orientation. I would lead the HR portion, and I always had a whiteboard. And people remember me for the whiteboard because I would draw the triangle with the three components of the federal retirement, and try to just emphasize the difference between the first pension piece, the TSP, and then obviously your Social Security. Um, but again, I think you're exactly right. People they don't understand the difference in the components, and so we would just try to really stress that. Again, the first pension piece, that's pretty straightforward. Once you go through that, but it was always the Social Security and the TSP that really generated probably more interest and more questions because some of that is we can control and some we can't. And it was one of those areas too. I mean, HR is, we're not Social Security experts. That's a whole nother agency.
Yep.
And so, we always welcomed when we could get some assistance on teaching that. And then the TSP, the TSP is a great program, but it can have some challenges and complexities that, maybe we're not experts in either. And so again, it was really just trying to assist the employees on learning as much as they could about it, obviously utilizing for the TSP portion, the TSP website, which is has a wealth of information. But again, I think they liked when it was more, face to face and talk me through it style.
Perfect.
Yep.
Well, man, we appreciate having you on here. I know we're going to have you on a lot for a lot of different topics. You and I are going to be doing a lot of training and teaching. And, for those of you listening, put a comment down below. Let us know if there's anything else you guys want to hear, because we got a lot of things we're going to talk about. But make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, because there's going to be a lot of content. And basically, you're going to get content from HR perspective. You're going to get it from financial perspective. We're going to have estate plan. We got a lot of people coming on this show. Make sure you hit the like to subscribe button. Brian, thanks so much for being on today, man. I know I got a lot of, I was taking notes as you were talking. I know this is really helpful for people who are just getting started, maybe even people who are halfway through their career that need to go back and rethink these things. So thanks so much for being on today, man. We appreciate it. And for everybody listening, we'll see you guys on the next show. Take care.
Thanks.